Conwell.
Here.
Mr. Jones. Mr. Rogers. Ms. Simon is absent. Ms. Simon is absent right now. Mr. Greenspan.
Here.
Mr. Miller. Mr. Brady. Mr. Germana.
Here.
And Ms. Conley.
Here.
There is a quorum.
We have item 4, matters referred to the committee, and I understand who are we going to hear from first? These are regarding the sale of certain properties.
Thank you very much for meeting with us again today. Today we'd like to cover 3 more properties that were introduced as legislation to the council recently as part of the county's property consolidation. You'll be able to, thank you. We have some of these slides in here just as a matter of policy because a lot of times these presentations get reviewed. But again, we put about a dozen properties up for sale last summer, and we've announced a handful, and we are still in the process of finalizing some others to present to you as potential sales. But the 3 we'll be discussing today are the Hamilton Garage, which is right at the corner of East 18th and Hamilton, the Marion Building in the Warehouse District along West 3rd Street, and the Superior Auto Title Building just east of East 12th and Superior. So each of these buildings is in front of you today and is being bundled together because the recommended buyer that Public Works and the administration and CBRE are presenting is the same group. Weston, which is a local development company, is a family business that is based here. They submitted offers on each of these 3 properties. And interestingly enough, they were the only offer received for each of these 3 properties. So when we realized that, we wanted to make sure that before they felt too comfortable in their skin and felt like they had some leverage if they heard anything about being the only bidder, we negotiated quickly to bring up the total price that they were offering for each of these 3. The initial offers that they made totaled about $2.6 million. By the end, we had negotiated a package for the 3 properties valued at $3.42 million. And each of the facilities involves a lease back. So this is going to be a little bit different than some of the properties we've introduced to you. For example, last week we talked about the Glenville Neighborhood Family Service Center. We talked about the Brentwood Development Site. Both of those are pure sales. Each of these buildings involves some period of time where the county would continue to use them at below market rates and actually saving money as compared to the cost that they incur today to own and occupy them. And then as time goes on, the personnel that's in there will filter out of the facility and go into their long-term home. So the first building to talk about is the Marion Building. This is the largest of the 3. Because we had negotiated them as a package, we have approximate values right now that we've allocated to each one. So this is approximately a $2.1 million offer. It's part of that package. Weston's plan is to take this building and do a full renovation once the county is out of it to make it market rate housing in the Warehouse District. It's just about 100,000 feet with some first floor retail. The building is 7 stories tall. It's got really great views, especially on the north side on floors 5 and up. And it's laid out in such a way that it's got narrow corridors. It's shaped like an E. The floor plate is shaped like an E from up on top, and it makes for a natural dividing for housing. So it's actually a nice plan they've got. They also own the parking lots to the north and south of the building. One of the things that this building always suffered from was a lack of parking. And this buyer happens to own all the parking on that block. So it's a natural solution for them. The leaseback of the building is for a 3-year period. The leaseback rate is $13.14 per square foot. There's an electric bill that the county would pay on top of that, and you would just pay based on your actual usage. And there are options to renew for 1 year, 2 options, 1 year each after that 3-year period is up. At the beginning of the term, the county, which is really spread out in the building a little inefficiently, will be relocating a small group that's currently on the 7th floor into a vacant space on the 4th floor. And Weston is going to contribute the dollars to fund that move. And that way, the entire 7th floor and the entire 3rd floor of the building will be empty so that Weston could do some early renovations if they wish to get a jump on that for their housing project. When we did the scoring of this proposal, it scored an 82. We only did one scoring on each of these buildings because there were no multiple bidders and no need to score again. We jumped right into negotiations. Currently, you've got probation is the primary occupant of this facility. And the long-term plan over the course of the 3 years is that they will relocate to owned facilities, primarily in the Justice Center area. Other comments about this, 10% earnest money down. We've already mentioned that they own the parking fields to the north and the south. And, it's valuable to note that this is one of the buildings that the county owns and operates that is older, that has much older equipment and systems that need a lot of maintenance and cost the county a lot of money to take care of. This lease rate will actually, on day one, start saving the county money. So irregardless of sale price, just going from owning the building to leasing it, you will be paying less money each year at the Marion building. And that's true for each of these 3 properties. I don't know if there are any questions before I jump right into the next one.
Yeah, I have a question. What about the testing lab? Where are you going to relocate that?
Testing lab would also relocate into owned facility, primarily we're thinking the Justice Center.
I mean, where in the Justice Center? There's not a whole lot of room. I feel very strongly about it because these people have to be contiguous with the Justice Center. You can't have probationers going, up on Prospect or, if you got to go for a drug test, it's got to be very close.
Yes, and
You're
we
setting people up for defeat if you have to send them a long way off.
yes, and this is an ideal location, but an even better location would be to actually have the lab in the Justice Center itself. So as you know, we're going through and we're doing our analysis of the Justice Center and looking at all of our programs in the Justice Center, that we would look at how we would incorporate the probation lab and the services into the Justice Center. We are having conversations with the City of Cleveland in regard to the police headquarters to look at potentially using that building also, again, because of direct access into the Justice Center.
And is there any extension past the 3 years, so we've got to be out in the 3 years?
No, you can stay for up to 5. You'd have the 3-year lease back, and then you could stay for another year and then another year. So you've got up to a 5-year window, and the rents are pre-negotiated. So you know what those would be, all below market as of today. And the 5-year window should be sufficient. Our understanding of what's in the facility over at Justice Center is that consolidation provides more than enough space, because even though this is a 100,000 square foot building, the county really only occupies about 70 of it.
And then we have other tenants in there that we rent out too.
Yes, there's a handful of other tenants, but they are, Carl's Inn of the Barristers will stay in the building. The folks at Weston would like to keep them there as an amenity to the building. And then the couple of office tenants really are quite small.
I think some bail bondsmen or something.
There's a bail bondsman, there might be an attorney. There are about 2,000 feet total of the entire building. They're very small, single office spaces. I think there are 4 of them.
Any other questions, comments?
Sir, did you say those 4 were leaving? The 4 bail bondsmen, the attorney?
No, under this proposal, they will stay in the building as a subtenant to the county. And then when you move out of the building, you would have the option to continue to sublease to them in your final location, or they would have to find a new home. Right now, they are all month-to-month tenants. Yeah.
All right, any other questions? All right, going to the next one, I assume.
All right. That's me. The second building is the Superior Auto Title building on Superior Avenue, just east of 12th Street. Really nice 2-story building and in pretty good condition. The thing that this building suffers from when put on the open market for an arm's length transaction is that this particular neighborhood has not done well with leasing lately. So the entire block that it sits on is a string of vacant or nearly vacant buildings, with the exception of Nowak at the very end. Weston is interested in buying it as a speculative purchase. This would be either a 1 or 2 tenant property in their mind. It would be an office property. They would continue to use green technologies, potentially pursuing LEED and BOMA 360, and there would be a lease back in this building as well. So the lease back for the first year is just above $9 per square foot plus utilities. Since the county is the only occupant of the building, this is a much easier building to separate out utilities at, whereas at Marion, we had some included in the rent. You also have renewal options for 4 months in each instance. So for 1 year, you would lease back the building, and then if you needed to stay and renew, you could renew for one period of 4 months and then another period of 4 months. Right now, this is the auto title group. Potentially with the plan on the administration site, other groups may filter into here, but the overall plan is that this entire building will empty out and everybody will move into the consolidated administrative complex next year. Again, 10% earnest money. This is a speculative investment for Weston. They don't have anybody in mind for it. They just think the building's in good shape. It's got a small parking lot to the north, and it's something they think that they can lease up at some point.
What was the original use of that? Was that a furniture store or something, or?
I think that it was retail, but I am not sure. I only think that, you know what? I am told that it was retail, but that it was actually automotive retail prior to the county being in there, because there are stories that the workers there tell about how the freight in the back is rated for vehicles because they had to be pulled up to the second floor.
Other questions?
Okay.
Okay.
Third building is the Hamilton Garage at 1801 St. Clair. This would probably be a single tenant lease. It's also a speculative buy for Weston, who really doesn't have a user in mind for it. This is also in a neighborhood with a fair amount of vacancy. And this building, unlike Superior Auto Title, is much more of what we in the industry call a flex building. A portion on the front is office space. It's currently being used by one of your social services departments. And then the back of the building is a garage that is really not being well utilized by the county today. It used to be a vehicle maintenance garage. That use has left the facility. Now there are portions of the sign shop that are in there. The price tag on this at about $575,000. This is much higher than we expected. Again, it's a rough allocation based upon the package negotiation with Weston, but this allocation was much higher than we expected for this building. The optional lease back, the building is actually month to month. So there is no firm commitment that the county must stay there for any period of time. As soon as we are ready, able, and willing to leave, we can. And the rate on that is $10.95 per square foot plus utilities. It's anticipated that the groups that are in here, the sign shop and family and children first, really could be out within 6 months. And so that's what our anticipated plan is. They would go to owned facilities in the county's portfolio. Again, speculative investment, 10% earnest money down. And it's worth noting on all of these properties that Weston has begun the due diligence process, basically on an if-come basis, anticipating that they're hopeful that the council would approve, although no guarantees have been made. And their hope is that if that approval is given, they would be able to close rather quickly because their due diligence would be nearly done.
To the chair, where are they moving? Where's Family First Council moving?
I forget if it's Hunter or Brown, or no.
We've been in discussions with Joe Gottner and Rick Warner. They're not exactly sure where these where the staff is going to move. They're thinking about one of the satellite offices, and I want to say in Brook Park, but don't quote me on that. But I don't think they've actually determined where they're moving to.
Is that permanently?
I believe so. I think there's 8 staff members there. It's a real small facility, and there's 8. There are options in the Virgil Brown and the Hunter building, but I think their preference was to look at the Brook Park facility.
Just thinking, because I don't know if they hold some of their meetings for the family or for the outside. Are they? Because that's Brook Park is not a central location, so I'm just wondering if they hold their actual outside meetings at their offices that they're at, where they're at now.
And I apologize, I can't answer that. I'm not familiar with their program.
Make sure you ask.
Yeah.
That's
Sorry.
important.
But we have been discussing, we've been having discussions with Rick and Joe Gottner in regard to the relocation of that staff.
Right, Mr. Jones?
And Bonnie, what about the department, signage department?
The sign shop, we're proposing to move into our 1642 facility. It's kind of a cascading effect. We have our print shop that prints brochures and whatnot. We're proposing to move that print shop into the processing center with the Board of Elections, because their biggest client is the Board of Elections for the ballots and whatnot, so it kind of makes sense that they're adjacent to each other. So they will be vacating space in 1642, and that's where the sign shop will go. And they work a lot with our trades, so it makes sense that they're right next to where the rest of our trades are in 1642.
Do you have a timeline for the move?
The key part is getting the sign shop, getting the print shop into the processing center. There may be some availability that we can move the sign shop into 1642, not into their permanent space, but in some temporary space before we move the print shop.
Mr. Greenspan?
When you said the processing center moving them in, was this the Haley Building complex?
Yes, that's our recommendation for the processing center.
I know that the current print shop location, how is that? All right, here's where I'm going with this. I was looking at the previous life, have a company print up. We were doing a couple thousand checks a week, and we talked about the warehouse facility being climate controlled. The humidity was very important, controlling humidity. I think I mentioned to you about
Yeah.
this, controlling humidity so it didn't jam the machines. Where is the current print shop? What's their system like? Because I know the Haley Building, which I'm not a fan of, but has no climate control environment for that type of purpose. Does the current facility have humidity and moisture control and?
Well, first of all, the current facility does have an HVAC system in it. But your comment in regard to the Halley Warehouse, it does have an HVAC system. And as we look at our programs and build out our programs with our tenant improvements, if there's additional HVAC system that needs to be done, we will include that as part of the tenant improvements.
So it is on the list for this facility to be not only HVAC but climate control in the sense of moisture content, humidity in the air. So too little or too much won't damage the hardware.
Yeah, based on the equipment, they have certain criterias, and we'll make sure that it's appropriate for the equipment that's in there. And keep in mind, our print shop has many pieces of equipment. It's not just one piece of equipment. So based on the needs of that equipment, we would accommodate that.
I was plugging in my phone and I got distracted. Tell me again about, what are you talking about for the Halley Warehouse?
The print shop.
Yeah.
So the print shop.
You're going to move the print shop to the Halley Warehouse?
to the processing center, correct?
But that's still in committee. There's not too many favorable votes for anything for the Halley Warehouse.
So wherever, whether it's the Halley Warehouse or, that is our recommendation.
And we are
but-
not particularly in favor. I don't think you have 6 votes for the Halley Warehouse.
Okay, so in spite of where it is, in an ideal situation, that print shop should be in the processing center, wherever that processing center is.
All right. But there's no guarantee that, because I have real problems with the Halley Warehouse.
We weren't prepared to talk about that now, but I think we're going to schedule another meeting and we can talk about what we're proposing at
Other
the
than
Halley Warehouse.
financially, I wish I had owned it over the years for all the money that whoever owns it made over the years. But yeah, I got real problems with that.
Okay, and we'll schedule another meeting and we'll talk in length and in detail about that and the archives.
Yes.
Why, looking at the legislation here, why would the cost of 3 relatively short-term leases total to more than the amount of money that we're expecting to get for the properties?
Well, these are these are primarily the costs are primarily your operating expenses of the buildings. It's a good question you ask, and so the next slide actually goes to answer a bit of it. If you look at your current cost today to own and occupy these facilities, you spend about $2.2 million a year to own and occupy these 3 facilities. During your leasebacks, the landlord of the building still has to maintain them. There's some utilities included. There's janitorial. There's capital repairs and funds that need to be taken care of so that the county isn't repairing somebody else's HVAC system once it's sold. Your leaseback rate is $1.78 million a year. So even though there is a leaseback, it's really because the occupancy costs. The portion of the rental rate that is not related to occupancy costs is very, very slim. And I mean, you can see right here, no matter what you do on day one, you're going to be saving money by having somebody else own and operate these for you and take on that risk of, expense.
Go ahead, I'm done.
I see the asterisk there, meaning which means it doesn't include the sheriff's personnel, which
It's not an either number.
it's not an either number.
Right.
Okay.
We removed it from
I
either
see
number
the second one.
so that you can, because that's kind of an allocation that,
All right, never mind. I didn't see the second asterisk.
yeah.
All right, any other questions or comments? So if there's no other questions or comment on this, I assume that we would entertain a motion to move this to the regular agenda. Is that correct, Ms. Schmetzer?
I think once I read it into the record.
Okay,
Shall I do that now?
yes.
Okay. Resolution number 2013-0179, a resolution making an award on requisition number 24534 to Weston Incorporated in a total amount of $3,420,000 for the sale of various county buildings, authorizing leases in connection with said sale, authorizing the county executive to take all necessary actions and to execute all documents necessary to consummate the contemplated transactions, authorizing the Director of Public Works to administer the projects, and declaring the necessity that this resolution become immediately effective, and is printed on the agenda with the 3 buildings, items 1, 2, and 3.
All right, if there's no other questions or comments on this, we can entertain a motion to move this to the regular agenda. Now, I don't know that this is time sensitive. I would prefer, because of the magnitude of this and the importance of this, that we have it for the 3 readings, but is that fine? Okay. All right, so is there such a motion?
I so move. Second.
Moved by Mr. Miller and seconded by Mr. Germain. Any other questions? All right, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So this will be on the agenda for first reading for September,
Second reading.
Second reading for September 10th.
okay. Okay. We have an executive session for collective bargaining. All meetings of the Cuyahoga County Council are open to the public under the Ohio Open Meeting Law. Under that law, council may go into executive session during a meeting for specifically authorized purposes. During executive session, council confers outside the hearing of the public. Council may not make any decisions about any matters in executive session. All decisions are made in public. This afternoon, council will go into executive session to discuss matters related to collective bargaining. During this time, our live session will be down, and we will ask all those not specifically needed for the executive session to leave council chambers. Anyone may re-enter once the meeting is ended. And we're doing this before the meeting so that we don't have to do it at the end of the meeting. So this matter will be on the agenda. Is there a motion to go into executive session?
Second.
Moved by Mr. Rogers and seconded by Mr. Schrein. Madam Clerk, we
For
call...
the we have to state the purpose in the motion. So
I
for
said
the
collective
purpose-
bargaining.
Yeah. Oh, good.
Okay.
Okay.
Call the roll.
Moving to executive session, Mr. Gallagher? Yes. Mr. Schron?
Yes.
Ms. Conwell? Yes. Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Rogers? Yes. Simon is absent. Mr. Greenspan?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Brady? Yes. Mr. Germana? Yes. And Ms. Conley?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay.